Hey everyone, welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. And as always, we are bringing you footage and coverage right here from the Chop. It is a beautiful Friday. I hope you guys had a beautiful week. We know there are some things that we have to get into, and our guy O has been on the scene every step of the way. We got to throw it over to our EP, Big O, on the scene. What's up, Big O, man?
Hey, what's up? Good morning, Trey.
Good morning, man.
Man, I tell you, it's been an early morning as well. I thought that I was actually going to get to sleep in today, but you know, as things go out here on the Chop, it's never quite what you think it's going to be. Looking around here in the Chop right now, you wouldn't even have any idea of what occurred early this morning at about 5:30, 5:15, 5:30. Man, the city came in to clear everything out. There'd been information that had been leaked out that said 6:15. There was a lot of stuff that came out that said 6:15. The city was going to move in. We started getting messages yesterday. But clearly, you know, if something's been leaked, people know, man. Nobody knows how to keep a secret these days. So we're like, well, if they're saying 6:15 and they're coming today, that means they're probably coming at 5:15 or sooner. And sure enough, like clockwork, about 5:15, 5:20, the city was here. They had been staged long before that. They were staged down on 12th Avenue, and SDOT began to dismantle the barricades that are out here. And you know, we caught all that on the live stream. Like I said, if you were here in the Chop right now, if you were just waking up, lucky you, because you got to sleep in, but you would have no idea all the commotion that occurred this morning.
Oh my gosh, I heard about it on the radio just slightly on my way in. I know that there was all kind of stuff, and one thing I said immediately, my guy O was on the scene.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is ConvergeMedia. We've been here. We talked about last night on the stream. It's like how we do anything is how we do everything. And you know what I'm saying? We're in it. And this wasn't this. I had no expectation back on May 29th, just writing a small story on my small blog about, you know, a protest in the International District. That one, we'd still be here, and two, that, you know what I'm saying, we'd be a source that's really on the front line here. So yeah. It was a lot, and we'll take some time today to unpack that. Also, we actually have some of the protesters that are here. We want to be able to get their point of view. From the city side this morning, I did talk to SDOT Director Zimbabwe. He was here on the scene. I talked to him. At the time, they were dismantling the art installations, the boxes on the barricades, and everything else. So we talked to him. And then the mayor sent a representative out here, one of the people that work in her office. I think the first name is Stephanie. Unfortunately, I don't have her last name, but one of the mayor's representatives was out here as well. But, man, it was just a lot going on. Yeah,
a lot of activity for a place that we've been seeing the activity kind of decrease, kind of ebb and flow, especially over the last week. I know there's been a lot of reports out there, just kind of misinformation. So it's good, again, that the live stream can capture what's really going on. I mean, that helps to tell the story that nobody else can really spin that narrative. It is exactly what you're seeing it to be.
Yeah, and, you know, what we saw this morning, like I said, it was SDOT, Seattle Parks. I mean, this was a big operation that they had staged out here. When I talk about big trucks going down for blocks in each direction on 12th Avenue, big SDOT trucks, Seattle Parks trucks. You had all the SDOT guys were in here, and like I said, they were disassembling the wood installations that are out there. And I think we'll probably get sometime during the show, we'll have one of our remote cameras kind of show what these boxes look like and things like that. And I mean, it was wild. So it was just me and actually a colleague who's out here from the Associated Press. We were the only people that were out here early this morning. And so we were out here, and before even the protesters really awake, there was one other guy, was a protester who was out there, and he was sitting on top of the boxes trying to get them not to disassemble the boxes. So then what happened is the protesters started to wake up, and we've got footage of them. They're laying in front of the bulldozers. They're laying in front of the trucks and everything else. And a conversation, it's like street negotiations going out over here. And I just want to be very clear, right? So in the context of this show, when I say negotiations, I'm not talking about political negotiations with demands, defund the police, or anything else. Let me explain to you exactly what I mean here. That the day that the Western Barricade came down and the East Precinct was vacated by the Seattle Police Department, that next day you had Chief Scoggins from the fire department, you had Director Zimbabwe from SDOT, and you had Hari Mara from Public Utilities. Every single day, they've walked the streets in here, and it's been micro negotiations from the beginning. Negotiations of where fire trucks are going to go, where Medic 1 is going to be, negotiations on, porta potties, negotiations on barricades and everything else. So there has always 100% since the barricade came down been negotiations between the protesters and the city.
Yeah.
There's always been a communication that's been there. And like I said, on the daily, we call them the three amigos. We see them out here so much. You know what I'm saying? The fire department, public utilities, and SDOT.
Yeah.
Those negotiations never ceased. You see what I'm saying? They've never really stopped out here. So what was amazing to me and what I saw here, because at the end of the day, what happened was the city staged a lot of people, a lot of their employees to come and start the dismantling. At the end of the day, the city just ended up negotiating. With some of the faces are different, but it's the same thing. The city ends up negotiating with the protesters. And if that was going to be the end result, then the city could have negotiated yesterday.
Right.
As to like, okay, well, hey, we're going to come in here on Friday. Let's do this or let's do that. Like either the city was going to do it or they weren't going to do it. And so what they did, though, is they staged in here to do it. Then they ended up negotiating. You know, I'm big on communication. I'm big on trying to find an understanding and a resolution. So at the end of the day, the city came in here and basically got pushed back out.
Yeah.
And now they've negotiated some things. Which is one negotiation is to let some human services in here for people that are in need of human services, mental health, things like that. Two, there's a car that's parked over there. There's a water main. You know, that used to be an open reservoir, so there's all kinds of pipes over there. The protesters didn't know that the car was on top of the water main and everything else, and they're going to move the water main. And most likely what's going to come out of these negotiations is a far barricade over there on Pine, or either one of some of these other cement barricades, they're going to get lifted. I definitely see that happening, you know what I'm saying, today. But that's something, if that was going to be the case, they could have just negotiated that yesterday, and probably the protesters would have, helped them do that. Yeah. But instead, what has occurred here is you see all the press has come in here this morning. I talked to Dan Simon and CNN last night. They were on their way. They're like, we're flying out in the morning. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But instead, CNN is back here. A lot of the big national broadcasters are back here right now. And it was crazy to see it unfold, because there's never not been an open channel for negotiation between the city and the operations. And I'm not talking about the political thing. I'm not talking about defund and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm talking about, like I said, there's everyday, barricades. There's the negotiation around electricity and the lights at Cal Anderson Park. So for this to actually go down like this, and the city ends up leaving and doesn't really do anything, seems like they should have just negotiated it yesterday or the days before.
Well, I agree with you there, and again, we are seeing some incremental things happen as all of this unfolds. I think that that's what all of us are, watching. We're watching every incremental decision unfold, and it has either consequences, maybe good or bad, for either party. And so what we're seeing now is it looks like the city could have done a different measure. Clearly the protesters, that's a huge thing that I was hearing blasting all over as I was coming in this morning. The protesters stopping the city. That is the story that is leaving the CHOP this morning. It is literally that the protesters here are still defending this place.
The biggest thing that I saw, and there's some protesters that are over here we're going to bring on, and we'll ask them. The biggest thing that I saw is the biggest credible messenger that the city of Seattle has had in this process is Fire Chief Scoggins. 100%. We've seen the fire chief every single day come down here. Fire Chief Scoggins has a relationship with so many of these protesters. Everyday protesters are just camping, all the way to people who are in leadership positions out here. Chief Scoggins knows them by name and everything else. But what happened here today is somebody from the mayor's office that nobody's ever seen down here before is now in the center of it. And actually they throw SDOT, they throw Zimbabwe under the bus. You know what I'm saying? Where you've got the fire chief. When we talk about people who carry a lot of weight and no baggage, you know what I'm saying? Chief Scoggins is the most credible messenger that this city has, who's earned the trust of the people out here, the protesters. There's not any protester group who sits out here who's going to tell you, oh, no, the chief, fire chief, this and that. People are going to tell you like, yo, you know what? I might not agree with what the city is saying, but they respect Chief Scoggins. They take him at his word, and they know that he's walked these streets out here. And to see Chief Scoggins not even included in any of the discussion that was going on out there. I talked to the deputy chief. I said, what's up, deputy chief? He's like, yeah, we're just here in an observation role. I said, your observation role, where's Chief Scoggins at? Yeah. He's the guy who's actually been out here. And so ultimately, finally, you know, Chief Scoggins, maybe he got a phone call from City Hall or something. Then Chief Scoggins goes into, you know, the discussion. But they brought somebody from the mayor's office who nobody's ever seen before. And this is what I'm telling you about carrying a lot of weight and no baggage. If you're coming to negotiate, you got to get the people with the baggage out of the way, because so much of the conversation now went all to the political side. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? When this was an operational a discussion and negotiation that was supposed to happen here. I don't know if for City Hall it's about optics. I don't know if having this black man, this fire chief, who's actually walked these streets and gains people's trust, I don't know if they don't want him out there, though they don't want him on camera or anything else. But it seems to me all the success that Chief Scoggins has had out here in dealing with these protesters, for today to be the biggest day that the city has taken action here to try to sideline him is crazy.
Absolutely. And I think that they could really learn a lesson from independent media and the streamers that have been out here on the streets, literally showing Chief Scoggins doing his walks, talking to people, embracing people, building relationships. We talk about this a lot. We talk about the fact that what is one of the broken things in the system is the relational piece. When Chief Scoggins is out here building relationships, you should actually lean on him in his understanding of those relationships. Man, it's unfortunate that this has occurred.
I'm wondering how City Hall can say that they want to bring in black-led community organizations who don't nobody know, when you have the fire chief who's from South Central Los Angeles, grew up under Daryl Gates, rose to the rank of fire chief, this black man who's gained everybody's trust. They want to bring in people who the protesters don't even know. You know what I'm saying? And there you have a gem in the fire chief, and they want to sideline him, man. I mean, it's too many political games down there at City Hall. People are definitely not listening. We've been out here on this stream, and you guys have seen it time and time and time again. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, again, a bad step in my decision, a very bad decision. You know, if anything, they should have had the chief out here, the fire chief Scoggins out here out front. That's the most credible messenger that the city of Seattle has right now in talking to the CHOP.
Yeah, and literally what we've been talking about, I mean, it looked like there was some things that were trying to move in terms of forward progress. This right here feels like a step in the wrong direction in terms of the city bringing down that hammer. Literally this week, we've been reporting that, hey, folks were saying the city was going to come in, and you're like, well, if you actually listen to the mayor's press conference, she said that she wasn't going to do that. They said the city wasn't going to do that, and here we have that actual opposite. So it's unfortunate.
Well,
man.
I mean, what they said is they weren't going to come in with the police, which they haven't. You know what I'm saying? The police sat out there. There were some officers in cruisers out there, and then there was a captain or lieutenant, if I got the rank wrong, my apologies, who we saw several times on the other side of the line. This was my first time seeing him not being on one side of the protest line or the other. So we caught up for a second, and the SPD said, hey, man, we're just here to observe. You know what I'm saying? And they had their position and their posture over there. But they sent in. I mean, it was crazy this morning. And at the end of the day, what has now happened is you have a media firestorm. If they thought this just exacerbated this situation, and now you got a Friday, it's going to be 80 degrees. Yeah. You're going into Pride weekend. And everything is still here.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. It feels like the stew is brewing, man, because literally it's looking like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. We know that, again, this looks like a wrong decision from the city's perspective, and whether it was police, whether it was SDOT, whoever else, at the end of the day, it was a city decision to come in here without those negotiations, and that's the part that a lot of people are going to be sitting on today.
Yeah, but let's call a spade a spade. The Seattle Police Department wasn't in here today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of stuff we could bring up Chief Best on and around things here, and there's a lot of things. These protesters are here. They know I call them out too. We got a protester coming right here. We call it out where we see it.
Yeah.
But today wasn't the day to sit there and throw Chief Best under the bus. No. You know what I'm saying? The Seattle Police Department was not involved over here. You know what I'm saying? The Seattle Police Department was outside of the CHOP park, and you know what I'm saying, in an observation position. So, let's be clear. This came out. Who was on the ground here was SDOT and Public Utilities and a representative from the mayor's office. You know what I'm saying? The Seattle Police Department was not involved over here, at least in a visible space. I mean, they were outside of the CHOP as far as that goes. But I mean, it's just amazing to me that it's like, man, communication.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, like, man, people know all the time, I'm not with the protesters.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not with Black Lives Matter. I'm not with the city. Man, we just sitting here showing people what we're seeing. And it's just, it's incredible because we're seeing it. And the one thing about live stream is we're actually telling it in real time.
Right.
And whether people don't necessarily, it's Omari, you don't have to believe what we're saying. There's so many streamers out here. And now the AP's out here, and they stream a lot of stuff. It's live. Look at these streams. See what's going on. You know what I'm saying? See what's happening. So like I said, at the end of the day, what's most likely going to happen, they got another meeting that's going to be here at noon and everything else. And there's some things that some of the protesters are already willing to concede. 100%, they're moving. If those cars are already moved off the reservoir, I'm sure they'll be moved here shortly. There's nobody who wants to contaminate a water supply. And once Public Utilities said that those cars had the potential to contaminate the water supply, everybody's like, man, and move the cars.
Yeah.
Some of these barricades are probably going to go today. If SDOT comes back out here today, these guys are going to agree on some of the barricades. The barricades will be lifted out here. The other thing, human services. That's another thing. I mean, I talked about it last night, man. The mental illness and human services is real. Then you got some protesters who've literally been out here for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, they've been tented. You know what I'm saying? They've been sleeping here. Everything else. I mean, it's a lot that they've been doing. You know what I'm saying? And so. There's a mental toll that's out here. So human services is good. One of the things they're talking about with that, and also to be able to deal with the unhoused or the homeless population that's here. I think that you're going to end up seeing some compromise on that. But like I said, if the whole point was to compromise anyway, why go through all of this morning?
Agreed wholeheartedly. Oh, I can't wait to hear from the protesters and get the other perspective because, again, staying balanced is what we got to do here and make sure that we're getting both sides of this story as much as we can. So I agree with you there. I'm glad that we're able to bring some folks on today to help share their perspective in all of this.
Right, and speaking of that, I think you have the Deaf Chef, Daryl. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we've got one of the protesters over here. His name is Javi, and we're going to talk to him. And get the protesters' perspective. It's been a
long day.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get to sleep in, and and like you said, just keeping that balance. We talked to Director Zimbabwe this morning. We talked to Stephanie from the mayor's office this morning. So now we'll talk to one of the protesters over here. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Well, we're going to be giving away breakfast for the children and the families because right now everybody's doing lunch. Not too many people are dealing with anything besides that. So we're going to fill the void of breakfast and dinner for as long as we can. $10 on the breakfast bags. Till, what'd you say, Chef, till 1? 10 to 1, Chef Tariq says. Then 5 o'clock, 5 to 9 for community boxes. You see my man Trae back here doing this thing. Chef Tariq, Chef Chrissy over here. We got an all-star team, Chef Ariella. There's so many components to this. Well, to be honest, as much as I talk about accountability and being active, what would it look like if I didn't do nothing? Like, I can't talk the way I talk and not do nothing. That's the first thing. But the second thing, I love my people. There's nothing else to it. That's simple.
Right there. So if anyone would like to donate to what we're doing, here is the address right here, Tariq-Abdullah, and everything is going towards this whole project. Our goal is to basically be able to feed for the next 2 weeks, and after that, hopefully. But we're going to do the best we can for our kids and for our community. Shout out to Solomon for allowing us to use the space. If y'all hungry, come get that fried fish sandwich.
You see that? We just trying to give back, so come get something.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Again, still live here from the CHOP. You know what I'm saying? At the moment, doesn't look like the CHOP is going anywhere. Got a guest here, one of the protesters. I guess I'd almost say a day one protester. Huh? Day zero. Is that what the tag says? Javi Cordero out here. But before we get to that, so I just checked the email. Thank you for the people who text me telling me a few things here. So, one, I kept saying Stephanie, but I don't know her last name, is what I was saying earlier. That was Stephanie Formis, and that's the mayor's chief of staff. So it's Stephanie Formis, the mayor's chief of staff, is the Stephanie that was out here earlier. Thank you for that. We also got a statement today from the mayor's office. It isn't too long, but it's about 3 paragraphs. But I want to start with the last sentence because this was something that we had been saying all along. We'd been saying that SPD had no plans to enter the East Precinct today. And we reported that very early this morning. We talked to the officers over there. They said they had no plans. When we talked to Chief Best and people in the police department's office, they said that they had no plans to enter. I think it's very important, just, you know what I'm saying, and everything else, that we are specific about different things occurring here and everything else. I don't know if SPD is coming tomorrow, but for sure, you know what I'm saying, they were very clear that this wasn't their operation. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, let me get back into this. This is from the office of the mayor. So bear with me. It's like 3 paragraphs. I'll try to skim through it. City staff and multiple departments initiated efforts early this morning to continue the recovery of Capitol Hill neighborhood with the goal of removing some additional barriers blocking the roadways and cleaning up Cal Anderson Park. These efforts also include dispatching a wide range of social services to encourage those living overnight in Cal Anderson to begin leaving the area, or if experiencing homelessness, to take an offer for shelter. Many individuals have already departed the area to join in community-led events across the city. I would agree with that. That, you know, I mean, the city actually put up a place down there for people who are experiencing homelessness on Pine and Broadway. The city said that they wanted to send in human services, and the city has clearly stated over and over again that they want to reclaim the area. So that's paragraph number 1. Number 2, once this work commenced to remove some of the barriers blocking roadways, city workers were met with significant resistance from protesters who grew increasingly agitated and aggressive towards city workers from SPR, SDOT, and SPU. Safety is the city's first priority, and planning is ongoing for how to safely transition the Capitol Hill area. All right, last paragraph. The city has been deploying additional resources this week and on site every day. For any individual who has been attending demonstrations and may need city resources, the Human Services Department and Public Health, Seattle-King County, have been on Capitol Hill leading outreach efforts with service providers and established a resource hub to connect individuals with access to shelter, healthcare, food, resources, access to COVID-19 testing, and mental and behavioral services. Today, departments will join Black Lives Movement King County Community Health Services Day, which includes free health and wellness resources and services for all community, organized by Black Lives Matter Seattle King County and partners including the county, Odessa Brown, Carolyn Downs, Urban League, and Parks and Recreation, and there. So, but before I get to any of the other stuff, because you're a protester and you're out there and these are the people who are needing these services, when it's saying here that these services are out here and the social workers and all those things, are you guys seeing that, this resource hub, this here?
I have not seen that resource hub walking around this 4-block radius. No.
So, I mean, if anybody from City Hall is watching this, if there's an exact location, if you guys could text me, they got my number down there at City Hall. So before we get off the air, if you guys have a resource tent that's out here, because, you know, I mean, nobody knows everything, so we won't let your word be the final word. You're saying that you haven't seen it. But if the resource hub is out here that you guys have mentioned down at City Hall, if you guys could text me the exact location, have no problem letting people know, and I'm sure you'll let people know as well.
One of the only resources I've seen is just the free COVID testing that's going on at 11th and Pine.
Right, at the Lutheran Church. That's actually 11th
Correct.
and Olive.
Thank you, sorry, 11th and Olive.
You know, you got to know the turf. All right, so we got that, you know what I'm saying, it's sent over from the mayor. We've read it in its entirety and everything that's out there. So now, two things. One, this morning, from your perspective, what occurred?
This morning I got about like 25 texts from a bunch of people asking me what was going on. They heard that the city was tearing down barricades and stealing the art, and then I tuned in a little bit to your stream and was just seeing some of the confusion that was going on, and I think like that's kind of why I wanted to reach out to you to just because like you saw the text that I sent you. I said, you know what, like, regardless of all of these shenanigans by the city, and for me, this is their tactic of a battle of optics, that they are the people that brought these barricades in here. They are the people that said, oh, we want to give you some more canvas for your art. And when Scoggins, Mami Hara, and Sam Zimbabwe made those initial negotiations with people sleeping inside tents out here, and later I discussed with James, who was then director of the Volunteer Security De-Escalation Force that was positioned over there on 11th and Pine. James was like, this is impossible for us to like safely guard a perimeter. And that was something that I had called out to Scoggins. Later we met with Scoggins again in a recorded meeting that we have that footage and we're going to be releasing that. But Scoggins, Mami Hara, and Sam Zimbabwe met with 4 black organizers, and we spoke with them and said like that this is not going to do, like it's impossible for us to call out when Proud Boys or other threats or cars that are riding heavy with maybe packing guns. It's hard for us to enforce that perimeter. Scoggins told us he was going to go back to the drawing board and talk to us tomorrow, and then the next morning, that was when they rode in here at 6 a.m. and put the barricades in to the initial negotiations that they made with people who weren't official organizers. They're just people who are out here, and I trust that, I know that their intentions were pure, but they should have consulted people who's had the safety in mind.
Well, I mean, but the flip side of that, man, is, you know what I'm saying, it's been a crap show.
Absolutely.
Trying to find any kind of leadership that's out here, anybody
Absolutely.
that's willing to take ownership. You know, we hear it all the time that I'm representing a group that doesn't represent themselves, a decentralized leadership of a council of 50 or whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, man, protesters, you guys got to take responsibility.
There's no accountability, absolutely.
Yeah, there's absolutely no accountability. I mean, you guys don't have no public information officer and everything. Anything else is out here. And so I mean, if you're saying that the city talked to this guy, but it should have been that guy, it's like, man, is that really the city's fault that people are out here and protesters aren't sitting out here organized enough?
And what I would have done if I was in Scoggins' shoes is I would have held a public QA in the park. I would have advertised for it. I would have set up a stage, and then the city could have gotten on that stage and said their concerns of, we're concerned about getting trucks in here. We're concerned about getting Medic 1 in here. But as we have seen over the shootings that have happened outside the perimeter, over at 10th and Pine when Lorenzo was shot and killed, on 11th and Pine when DeJuan Young was shot, who is still alive and in the hospital, and he was shot by 4 armed white men who shot him in the chest, called him an N-word, shot him 4 more times right there. Medic 1 did not come down and help him. So
I was there. I got the whole thing on live stream. So what you're saying from your side, from the
communication,
from the protester side, is communication has very much been an issue.
On both sides.
I was about to say, like, there's no way the protesters can wash their hands and be like, oh, it's all our fault. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And from the city side, you're saying that, man, they should have talked to a wider audience, right?
I mean, when someone wants to get elected, right, like, they have no problems organizing the infrastructure around making sure that their spokesperson's name is known and making sure what their mission is and what they're trying to do. I do not understand why they could not have been doing that all along. They haven't done that once in the 4 weeks that we've all been out here.
Yeah, I mean, the flip side of it is, too, though, Javi, is like, man, you guys have been on national TV, some international TV, the BBC, watch TV in Australia. You see this protester who's saying they speak for this and that. You know, I was on a clip down in Peru or Argentina with what you call Mark Anthony. We were on the same clip. They're, you know, they're what you would call it in Spanish. The TV we were at in Sweden, the guys over in Sweden, like, there's a big group of protesters that have all been on national and international TV. You guys are in Forbes, you guys are in Time, you guys are on all these publications and everything else. And so, you know, I mean, on the flip side of it is, protesters know how to use media when they want to use media. And so, but where was the direct line of communication from the protester side? Now, you've called out where you're saying the city has dropped the ball. Where's the accountability on the protester side?
The accountability on the protester side lies with all of the individuals who have repeatedly pushed back against efforts to rally all of the different groups and factions that are out here, who have repeatedly pushed back. Like you were there during that first attempted council meeting that happened in the alleyway on the precinct down here, and repeatedly there were individuals that were interrupting. There were people that were saying that they spoke for this and that, and then when we told them, all right, we're going to move to Cal Anderson and move our meeting over there, all of a sudden those individuals were nowhere to be found. And then the next day, when we held another meeting over there, there were individuals like Mark Anthony and that guy who wore the name tag that said Momo with a white long sleeve shirt, who later assaulted someone, who repeatedly would get up and talk over people and would do everything in their power to push back any attempts at trying to be organized. It can be diffuse, but to be disorganized is irresponsible because that places the safety of people's lives at danger.
I mean, and you know, I'll be honest with you, as a journalist, but most importantly, as a stakeholder in this city. You know, what we talked about last night is that the protesters here at CHOP and also the city of Seattle, their obligation is much bigger than CHOP. Their obligation is to all the stakeholders, the citizens of the Emerald City. So you guys as protesters, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I know guys have bigger visions and everything else. Your obligation as a protester is much bigger than this 3 or 6 blocks that are over here
100%.
or this East Precinct.
100%.
And City Hall, their obligation is much bigger than just returning Capitol Hill. This is a city problem.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? This is something that impacts all of us stakeholders who call Seattle home.
Yep. And if you on Instagram, there's a channel called @DefundSPD, and they put out posts of upcoming protests. And the most recent one for the upcoming protests of this weekend, it's over 10 slides. So while it may look like we're tired out here, or the movement's slowing down over here, the whole city is busy. And there's a lot of things going on. And so when I texted you this morning, my general message that I just wanted to tell you individually and tell other people who are invested in
and
this.
what did I say? Come on the show.
Absolutely. And thank you. And you've always been incredible about wanting to give platforms and voices for people. But my message would be one of hope that these barricades we're here weeks after the protests had been going on. Police were in that precinct weeks when the protests were going on. And if the police come back in, that's beautiful because we have faces that we can recognize of the faces who tear gas and shot rubber bullets at women, children, and protesters out in that field. And we can be reminded. And if these tents get pushed out of all these like people, predominantly white people who think that this is like a camp for burning, like this is Burning Man, who are like out here playing music and drinking and doing drugs at night, like if they get washed out as a consequence of the police moving in and cleaning up the park, that's fine because the rest of the protesters, the real protesters, can get back to work, in disrupting the city because life cannot continue as it has been.
All right, so when you talk about disrupting the city, I mean, what is it that you want? Because what I just heard you say is that, man, if the East Precinct goes back into the city's hands, you're like, yeah, no problem, because now we get to see people, you know, who might have been involved over here in the Western Barricade. But you're saying the disruption continues. And one thing that we've been saying is that, you know, it's an energy transfer, man. I mean, the energy that transferred from the Barricade now transferred to the CHOP. And if there's something's not resolved here, then the energy from the CHOP is going to continue to go somewhere else. And so along that line there, where does this energy go next if it's not resolved here? We talked about disrupting. What is it that you want?
So, I mean, when I talk of disrupting, I mean more than just like protesting. I mean more than just picket fences. I mean like rallies and education. I mean, all of the things that Decriminalize Seattle has been doing. I mean, people going out and building BIPOC organic food banks that have had land donated to them. John Wesley on Twitter. On Instagram, sorry. But there are like many ways to disrupt the status quo as we know it and let them know that like Black lives have not been mattering. And we will make it matter because this is like the people that's speaking. And so that's what I'm just saying. Like, stuff isn't going to stop. And when I say disruption, I don't mean like Nordstrom windows shattering. I mean people getting educated on like what does it actually look like to defund? Why does Carmen Best make over $300K a year? Like, do police officers need to make that much?
Are you Black?
I am Puerto Rican, and in Puerto Rico, it is made up of...
It's an Afro population. I mean, that was a setup for my next question.
Yeah.
As somebody who outwardly appearing, and Puerto Rico does have a big Afro population there, but as someone who doesn't appear to be Black like me, why are you sitting here saying Black Lives Matter and you're pushing this agenda?
Because it's fucking right. Because I've got family that's Black. Because I don't need to have family that's Black for this to matter. Because, like, my liberation as a queer Puerto Rican American is inextricably tied to your liberation as a Black man, is inextricably tied to your ability to walk down the street and dance to music and not have to have your life be threatened by an officer who has only been given weapons to harm.
All right. So what is it that let's just do a little maybe myth busting or maybe narrative addressing out here right now. What is it that you want people to know? And I mean, they're on the platform, people from City Hall, people from different government, you know, there's everyday citizens that are on here. What are some of the things that you hear that are out there that might not either necessarily be true, or what is it about, you know, your narrative or whatever you guys are trying to push that you want people to know?
And when you say you guys, I am here speaking as an individual.
So I would say you want people to know.
Absolutely. What I want people to know is to be wary when anyone claims they are an organizer. Find the name of their organization. Look at the actions they have taken as an organization if they do claim to be an organizer. If they claim to be a council of the like this tent city that's popped up on Cap Hill, what have they actually done? You know? If they claim to be in touch with security, like, is that true? Because James and Slate were the names of the people who were directing security on that corner for the initial 3 weeks that this was going on. They have disbanded because they've been receiving multiple people trying to tail them home. So, like, when people say there's security here, when people say that, like, oh, the medic's gone, medics are gone, medics are not gone.
No, the medics aren't. I talk to the medics every night. They check in. They're like, if anything happens,
they're in plain clothes.
Here's this and that.
They're
here's
waiting.
where we are. The medics are no longer, and we said that on the stream. They're no longer there. They're at an undisclosed location.
Absolutely.
And they actually they check in with us every night before we go out and say, this is where we'll be. Call us if you need us.
Exactly. But in terms of, like, I want to bring attention to, like, question organizations that have in the past criticized CHOP and then now all of a sudden are putting out like stealth statements supporting it. Like Black Lives Matter Seattle, like we see you, and I'm curious as to why with your considerable resources you have not brought any rallies or education or helped with any kind of infrastructure to help with your experience elevate these protesters to understand that they need to be holding some semblance of unity. And so I want those organizations to be accountable. And then I also want people to know, like, it doesn't end here. This is just one spot. This weekend is a busy one.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, yeah, this is a big weekend as well in the LGBTQ community, and this is
Pride weekend.
This is like, ground zero basically for Pride weekend right here. I mean, what's this gonna look like over here, especially if this weather holds and everything else?
If I don't see with all of these events going on, I don't see them holding a parade out here, and I hope that out of respect for the movement, they don't hold some kind of parade. Yesterday, there's this incredible queer march that went down over at the Mohi, and like the presence of misogyny and transphobia and queerphobia that have been out here among the people who some of them have claimed to be organizers and protesters. There's a reason why you have not seen queer voices centered in and around this movement. So the more that we can remind ourselves that intersectionality is at the key of organizing towards liberation, like.
Right, not to go too far down that road, because I got a few more questions. But I see a lot of stuff here, whether it's signs or painted or whatever it says, like Black Trans Lives Matter, things like that, bringing awareness to different areas within LGBTQ.
Absolutely.
Right. I do want to make a correction, though, right?
Please.
Is that I know you said that you got a text saying that SDOT was out here and that they were stealing the art. I want to be correct that I have Director Zimbabwe on tape saying that their plan was to actually uninstall the art. They had a truck over there to put it in and catalog it, and they were going to take the art to their facility. So, I mean, technically, depending on your view, you could be like, yeah, steal, but I'm just saying that they had, Director Zimbabwe was clear that they had a plan for the art, and they were going to take the art for people to be able to come out there. So I just want to throw that out there.
Like, especially like as a Puerto Rican, when a state issues a statement about what they're going to do with property that is not theirs, I get suspect. And I would have much rather had that art compiled and they can guard it. And then like Afro King come down here, one of the primary organizers who wrote the Black Lives Matter sign on the street, they can safeguard that art. Like they can like pass it over to the community and not have it in the hands of the city, because as we wouldn't be here if we trusted the city.
Right. Well, I always try to have a very clear
100%.
and open and transparent platform. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate
that. That's there. So, one other question for you here,
please,
because we heard in the mayor's press conference, one of the big things that she talked about is she wanted to bring Black-led community organizations in here to the CHOP to actually talk to people like you, to talk to people like Mark Anthony, or to talk to whoever, or Rashyla, or talk to Convict, or talk to I've got all these names that are violent out here, or talk to so many other people whose names I just don't know, but I know faces. To talk to Dread, to talk to all of these guys. How does that play out to approach? I know you can't speak for all these other people, but the whole idea is that the Black-led community organizations are at the table with somebody, with Javi, and saying, okay, Javi, we want you to leave.
So in terms of like the city contacting any Black organization and having them show up as the mouthpiece for that message, that makes me wonder, have they received money from the city? Are they taking a cut to deliver that message in blackface for the mayor? So I am wary of that.
Well, considering that this protest has been 90% white, the occupation has been 90% white. Do you also see this as the mayor shifting it now to be a Black problem, to send it into Black people? At least these are white people that have been out here. These are white people that have been camping. And also one of the things is, and we talked about in the podcast, we talked to a lot of neighbors in the podcast, it's a lot of people who weren't a protester or anything, but the gas and everything from the flashpoint, the Pink Umbrella Day, drove a lot of stuff in the neighborhood. And one of the other things that the mayor, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, The mayor mentioned a lot of things in her press conference, but I did not hear her mention that she had a plan to be able to fix the fractured relationship between the East Precinct and the people who actually live here. Not even protesters, the people that live here. And a lot of the people who live here actually became protesters and became mutual aid and everything else. You know what I'm saying? But do you feel that effort to bring in black people now into this protest is a shift over by the mayor's office, say it's a black problem?
My gut makes me think that this is her attempt to manipulate the black organizers that are here in this space, and that it is an attempt for her to lend some legitimacy of like, oh, but do you see, like, all these black organizations are telling you to stop CHOP, and like CHOP can stop as it is. It can stop as this like alcohol, like drug-filled garbage festival. Like, this tents can get the fuck out. It's not a camping ground. It's a protest. No more substance abuse. Like, have some fucking respect for the people that have lost their lives here. You know, this is a protest, and that has not been respected a lot. Like, and I just, to respond to your comment about like 90% white, like in that conversation, I think it's really important that we do not whitewash all of the strong black leadership that has participated to the growth of CHOP. And I'm not speaking of the people who have like, I've been here since day one and I've been but I'm speaking about the incredible rallies held by Relby Free, Nikita Oliver. I'm talking about the Black Femme rally that was over there. I'm talking about like the indigenous,
martial law, even in their musical
martial law.
So like, I'm not trying to discredit them. I'm just saying that literally being out there every day and being on the front line and looking back, I mean, it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and I think that's two exclusive things. You know what I'm saying? What's the population look like, and who are some of the leadership from the black community that's been out here and been doing things, whether it was Western Barricade or when the barricade fell and right after into the Chaz and everything else. So I think it's two exclusively different things. But what I'm saying is that it's a white city. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's representative of the population that's out here amongst the protesters. Any thoughts on what's going to happen today?
My thoughts are that if the city does come and remove things, there's going to be some resistance of the people who are here who may have the thought in their head that like this movement depends on their ability to hold out and camp out here. But all I know is that at 6:30, like, the organization that I'm with, Black Collective Voice, is having a teach-in on how to be anti-racist, not just non-racist, at Jimi Hendrix Park, 6:30. And there's a dozen other events that are happening. But what's going to happen out here, with the numbers being as low as they are, they could theoretically drive in enough cops and arrest. If it's just like 50 people,
let me stop you right there. So actually, protesters have removed the signs, but SDOT or Seattle Parks put up a sign that actually said that the park closes today at 2 o'clock. Park closes at 2 o'clock. So now why is that important? It's like, okay, the clock. Exactly. So it closes at 2 o'clock, which technically means at 2:01 if you're in the park, and you get a warning. You know, it's like, hey, you know, it's 2 o'clock, the park's closed. If you stay within the park, then it's trespassing or loitering, or depending on how many people there, unlawful assembly.
Exactly.
All misdemeanors in the city of Seattle.
But enough reason for detainment.
Right. So I can't confirm anything. I'm getting messages saying that certain people might be here at 2 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? And of course, we'll be here, so we'll see what happens with that. And it would be good if Seattle Parks can let us know if the 2 o'clock time still stands, considering
they left.
Well, exactly. Considering Parks and DOT has left the area, if somebody in the city can let us know, is Cal Anderson Park still closed at 2 o'clock today? You know, I'm more than happy to get the word out on our platforms, either way, whether it's open or closed. You know what I'm saying? Because the sign went up at like 5:30. It came down at 5:40. So it's a good number of people who are over there who actually, because if you wake up over here, you wouldn't think anything happened this morning the way that it looks right now in the CHOP.
Yep, absolutely.
So Seattle Parks or DOT, if the park is still closing at 2 p.m., please let us know so we can be a part of getting that information out to the public. Before you get out of here, man, is there anything else that you want people to know?
No, I've said everything. Thank you.
Yes, no, I said it all.
All
right. Javi Cordero, Black Collective Voices.
BlackCollectiveVoice.org.
Black Collective Voice.
We were here yesterday at the press conference and the speech.
Yeah, you're a part of the group that was here yesterday with Nadia and all that.
Nadia Miller,
thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
I'll let you get back to protesting, and we'll catch up with you. We're going to take a short break right now. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Well, we're going to be giving away breakfast for the children and the families because right now everybody's doing lunch. Not too many people are dealing with anything besides that. So we're going to fill the void of breakfast and dinner for as long as we can. $10 on the breakfast bags. Till, what'd you say, Chef, till 1? 10 to 1, Chef Tariq says. Then 5 o'clock, 5 to 9 for community boxing. You see my man Trae back here doing his thing. Chef Tariq, Chef Chrissy over here. We got an all-star team, Chef Ariella. There's so many components to this. Well, to be honest, as much as I talk about accountability and being active, what would it look like if I didn't do nothing? Like, I can't talk the way I talk and not do nothing. That's the first thing. But the second thing, I love my people. There's nothing else to it. That's simple.
Right there. So if anyone would like to donate to what we're doing, here is the address right here, Tarek-Abdullah, and everything is going towards this whole project. Our goal is to basically be able to feed for the next 2 weeks and after that, hopefully. But we're going to do the best we can for our kids and for our community. Shout out to Solomon for allowing us to use the space. If y'all hungry, come get that fried fish sandwich.
You see that? We just trying to give back, so come get something.
Welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. That was a great interview right there, Omari, with Javi.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to be able to get a protester perspective. And then all in the same segment, we read a release from the mayor's office and talked to the protester. I mean, we just want to continue to bring balance to the conversation.
Absolutely. That's what's been going on here at Converge. It's really great to be part of a team that tries to stay balanced in all of the ways possible. Literally, just sharing what is going on out here. We know there's going to probably be some developments throughout the day. What else is going on with Converge? You have some other things going on.
Not much. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. Remember that song? One thing I do want to say is, I got some clarification here as well, and thank you for the people that are texting in. So in the mayor's press release where they said that there's a lot of different services being offered, everything but the COVID testing is there on Pine and Broadway. There's a tent down there, and we'll actually go down there and we'll get some photos. We'll put it up on Twitter. So everything except for COVID is on Pine and Broadway, right over there by Seattle Central College. The COVID testing is on 11th and Olive. Boy, I'm losing it out here.
Yeah, no, your voice is almost gone. It is almost shot. And I'm just hoping that everybody really enjoys this weekend. It is looking like it's going to be a beautiful one. I know I'm excited. Oh, I'm actually going on a mini vacation. Can you believe it?
Good for you.
Yes, I'm excited.
Man.
Black-owned resort, Soap Lake Resort. You guys check it out. I'm excited to go there today with my girl Ashley McGurk for her birthday. So I'm really excited.
Ashley was out here yesterday, 2 days ago. I was telling these guys on the stream last night. Ashley was like, man, you got to go get checked out for PTSD. because it's crazy. Like everybody out here, man, we hear a noise. We're like this and that. I hear something when they spray paint over there. Somebody spray painting, and you think that it's pepper spray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Javi was actually telling me the other day when he hears cars revving, and he's because he was right there when the car ran into the crowd.
Oh my gosh!
And so it's like it's crazy. I do know up here that taking care of mental health and being in a good mental space is very key. So I'm glad you're getting out of town.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that we've all been doing. No sleep. Your voice is shot. Oh, I'm excited for you to get some rest so your voice can return. So there will be no chats with Trae today. I'm actually going to enjoy
my
weekend.
Was a setup for some information, huh? Okay, I was wondering you were going. All right, well, no chats with Trae, and that's fine. I think that we'll probably be doing continuing coverage around that time anyway. So we will be on air. Looks like it's the top of the hour. It's gone really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to hold you up because you on your way out of town.
Thank you, sir.
That's what's up. Just want to, like I said, tell everybody that we're going to have continuing coverage here. And what we saw here this morning is about 5:30. Is when we were right here on the scene, 5:30 this morning, where SDOT began to disassemble some of the wooden boxes that are on top of the cement barricades. They'd also put up a sign over at the Cal Anderson Park that the park was closing today at 2 o'clock. As protesters woke up, they found that some of them, we got it on tape, they were laying in front of the bulldozers and things like that. Ultimately, the Stephanie Formas, who is the chief of staff for the mayor, and also Director Zimbabwe from SDOT, were engaging in some negotiation with a lot of the people that they've already been negotiating with. Stephanie Formas is new on the scene, but Director Zimbabwe, like I said, he's been out here from day one, public utilities from day one. And who was missing in the conversation, though, was Chief Scoggins. Yeah. So, but ultimately, who they were like, man, they're just here to observe. But clearly, you know what I'm saying? He's the credible messenger that's out here, from the city. A guy who carries a lot of weight and no baggage, and he joined into the conversation. And then, they've gone on. And what's going to happen today? My prediction is one, like I said, the vehicle that's sitting over there by the reservoir will most likely be moved. Two, anybody that's going into the park for human services or into the park for cleanup, they're going to be allowed into the park, or they're going to start their cleanup. And actually, some of the protesters volunteered to actually, they said they clean it themselves. And somebody from Public Utilities was like, well, hey, let's just do it together. So I think that you'll probably see some of the protesters and Public Utilities doing some cleanup over there in the park. And I wouldn't be surprised if some barricades move today, because that was the actual part of the discussion, is to move some barricades, but clearly not the barricades in front of the East Precinct. I don't see them moving here, at least not today.
Right, absolutely. It looks like there's going to be more to come on that one, though.
Definitely. So, hey, we're going to get out of here. Unfortunately, we're already standing. You know what? You guys have a fantastic weekend. We'll be doing continuing coverage here from the Chop all throughout the weekend. And are you going to be back by Monday?
I will.
You might go on vacation and decide not to come back.
I got you. I will definitely be back on Monday.
All right. We'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.
Peace.
Every voice and sing, dealer than heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.